But even as President Obama is moving the United States and our international standing beyond the Bush years, or at least trying to, former Vice President Dick Cheney won't let any of us leave those years behind, arguing publicly and with amazing frequency that we should keep Guantanamo open, that torture works, and that the Iraq War was an awesome idea, even if there were no weapons of mass destruction or links between Iraq and al-Qaeda. Now, President Obama has responded directly to Mr. Cheney. In an interview with National Public Radio, the president made it clear that the Cheney media tour of late has gotten his attention.
Well, he also happens to be wrong, right? And last time, immediately after his speech, I think there was a fact check on his speech that didn't get a very good grade.
What you hear in the distance is fact checkers across the nation clapping themselves on the back. Even as the president was rebutting Mr. Cheney, he still was yet again out there. Cheney was out there yet again talking about his new favorite pet issue, this set of magical classified memos that he says prove that torture works.
The president's already released the legal opinions that allowed us to do them. I think you ought to also release the results and show what, in fact, we accomplished as a result of that.
Second time in less than 12 hours, we hear a call for releasing secret memos about torture from a vice president who for years defended the secrecy of memos about torture. In a moment, we will talk about all of this with our guest, Dan Rather, live here in the studio. Mr. Rather has just finished a documentary about a former Guantanamo prisoner who says that he was tortured during his nearly 7 years of imprisonment. The prisoner was finally released recently after never being charged with a crime. Here's a short little clip.
This is the area of Guantanamo journalists are now allowed to see. And the military says it now runs a humane facility in compliance with international and U.S. laws. But, according to Boumediene, there are other areas where he says torture was practiced for years.
They started torturing me in 2003, exactly I think in February or March, or beginning March.
For example, Boumediene says he was forced to run with his legs in shackles to soften him up for interrogation.
The big soldiers, they make me running with them by shackles, leg shackles, and if I will be tired, they will pull me on floor. All my legs is bleeding, but they don't care to me.
Joining us now is Dan Rather, host of Dan Rather Reports on HDNet. Mr. Rather, thank you so much for being here.
Always a delight to be with you.
The man you interviewed there in that clip we just showed, Lakhdar Boumediene, is not just saying he was tortured in 2003 or 2004 during the Bush administration. He's also saying the abuse is still going on at Guantanamo. How credible do you find his allegations?
Well, credible in the sense that when you're in his presence, when you see the interview, he seems believable. However, one must contrast that with the admiral who's in charge of Guantanamo and has been for the last year. The admiral says, listen, this is untrue, that these things are not still going on. He doesn't address what went on in previous years. These things are not going on. So it's one of those cases where you take a listen to both sides and you have to make up your own mind. I want to make 2 points about what Mr. Boumediene says. Number one, he says that for him that the torture continued after President Obama came into office. But he is not talking about torture associated with interrogation. He was force-fed because he was on a hunger strike, and it is his claim that efforts were made to make that as painful and as uncomfortable as possible. Number two, he is in that strange category, Rachel, which there are 21 people, I think, left in Guantanamo in the category. Officially, they are free to leave. The courts have said they don't have the evidence. In many cases, in his case, they never had the evidence. They're free to go, but no one will take them. And so he was kept from November, when the Supreme Court said that he was free to go, when the court said he was free to go, until very recently, the middle of May, because no one would take him. The French were finally agreed to take him. But his basic contention is, Mr. Boumediene, that torture did go on big time from 2002 forward, that some changes were made, but no one should kid themselves, this is a paraphrase, no one could kid themselves from his viewpoint that it still goes on, and that the U.S. government has lied about the depths of the torture, how much it happened, and the fact, from his viewpoint, that some of it's still going on.
And that not all of it was related to interrogation, some of it was just cruelty?
Well, beginning with the Obama administration, he agrees that he doesn't claim anything had to do with interrogation, but such things as doctors using soldiers to do what doctors and nurses should do, and knowingly doing that. It's that kind of thing. The picture that's painted is that some of the people, by him, whether you believe it or not, is that some of the people who are working there now, seeing, well, Guantanamo is going to close, sort of take their last shots, if you will, against the detainees, whether they're in this officially free to go, but nobody will take them category or not.
There's so much to say about the domestic politics about closing Guantanamo right now. It's become such a through-the-looking-glass kind of issue. But beyond that, do you think there also will be attention paid, ultimately, to the prison at the Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan? I mean, even if Guantanamo is closed, has Bagram effectively sort of taken its place?
This is a very important point for Americans to consider. There is a school of thought, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with it, there is a school of thought that Bagram Air Base, which is in Afghanistan,
yes,
that it's the, quote, new Guantanamo. We don't know much about what goes on there. We know that there are hundreds of prisoners there. We know that some of the prisoners were not captured on the, quote, Afghanistan battlefield. They were prisoners brought from other places, such as Tunis or Yemen, and brought to the Bagram Air Base. And some of the contentions that were made about Guantanamo are certainly being made about Bagram. I think as things progress and we get deeper into this debate about Guantanamo, Guantanamo has become iconic, for better or for worse, in almost all discussions about how to handle detainees, whom to hold, for how long, torture or not torture, have centered on Guantanamo. But Bagram is out there, it's working, and the critical thing is there is no transparency.
Right, and if we're having legal debates about the grounds on which we hold people and their access to due process, Bagram's this giant sore thumb sticking out of that debate as we focus on Guantanamo. I think that is very important. Dick Cheney is one of the reasons that this issue is as contentious as it is in domestic politics right now, in my opinion. And you have a lot more experience in presidential politics and high-ranking politicians than I do, so I'm hoping that you can shed some light on something I've been wondering about for a few weeks now. Why are we seeing so much of Dick Cheney right now? What do you think is motivating him?
I think there are 4 reasons, in no particular order. 1, legacy. He knows, he doesn't like it one damn bit, but he knows that as the Bush-Cheney administration left office, the outlook for how they're going to be seen in history books of the future was not good. So number 1 is legacy. Number 2, keeping in mind these are in no particular order of preference. Number 2, he seeks to solidify and play to the Republican base, what some might call the most right-wing part of the party, which is stuck with him and President Bush all the way through. He wants to make sure that they realize they have a champion out there. Number 3, I think he really believes what he is saying. I don't think he's posturing. I don't think that he's saying something he doesn't really believe. I think he really believes it. And then the 4th thing would be, and I could be wrong about this, I think he really detests President Obama, his policies, and everything he stands for. So those are the 4 reasons I think he's out there. It's worth remarking, noting, that particularly former Defense Secretary Rumsfeld has said nothing. 0, zip, nada. And for that matter, neither is President Bush, which indicates that they clearly think that the tactics that the Vice President Cheney is using are not the right ones. But Cheney has always been a person, ever since he broke out from under Don Rumsfeld, who mentored him for all those years, he's always sort of prided himself, I'm my own man. I listen to myself, I don't listen to anybody else, and I do what I think, quote, is right, and I do what I please.
And now because of that, he's become effectively the counterweight to President Obama.
Well, I think in some ways an effective counterweight.
Yeah.
Whether one likes it or not, I think he's had some effect, partly because there are plenty of people who agree, close Guantanamo. It's given us a bad image abroad, close it down. But this business of bringing some of the detainees into the United States and the backwash from that of, well, not in my area code, not in my neighborhood, has given Vice President Cheney some traction.
A new scare issue there. Yeah. Dan Rather, it is always such a pleasure to talk with you about your work and about what's going on in the news. It's really nice of you to come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Nice to see you.
As always, thank you very much.